for what is known as a jet fuel swap to ensure security of supply to all airlines. The approved plan brokered with the CEF comprises two elements. The legislative instruments that are available to match supply and demand, and the second is to institute on an emergency basis the supplementation of that supply. In the medium term, we are engaging the services of the CEF to consolidate a medium-term plan given our new experience of the negative impact of floods and natural disasters on the security of supply. In the joint venture agreement we hold with the current suppliers, where they are required to maintain a certain minimum level of stock with Acsa. If they fail to meet these obligations, under normal circumstances, Acsa would have been able to impose financial penalties. However, force majeure has been activated, which prevents Acsa from instituting the penalties. Hence the emergency supply measure with the Central Energy Fund to mitigate the situation. With respect to the rail repairs and additional fuel for OR Tambo, Transnet Freight Rail confirmed that the current situation will be resolved with 50% of the rail line, a single line, will be restored by the 9th of June, meaning at least 50% of the normal capacity from the coast will be restored. The balance, taking it to 100% of rail tankered fuel, will be restored in October of this year. I also want to conclude that we had provided you information to confirm a consignment of jet fuel by ship, which we said would arrive on the 5th of May. We can confirm indeed it has arrived at the Durban port, and today on the 9th of May is being pumped into the National Petroleum Refineries of South Africa refinery. This will enable that fuel to further provide relief at OR Tambo thereafter. The important intervention we have today is to provide you with the outcome of our meeting and the plan that clearly illustrates the unity of purpose and single-mindedness of all the stakeholders represented here, understanding the short, medium, and long-term plans we have in place, and also to update you of the latest intervention, which is the emergency supply to be provided by the Central Energy Fund, as we have indicated. I would like at this point to confirm that we have the support of ASA, we have the support of BASA, we have the support of SAPIA, and the support of the Central Energy Fund, and more importantly, the support of the Department of Minerals and Energy that has overall legislative responsibility for security of supply. Can I also indicate as part of the information packs we will be providing you. We are supplying you with information that enables a firm understanding of the following: the jet fuel value chain and how it operates, and this will be in your packs. We have provided you with data and information that confirms the passenger numbers and the result of the cancelled flights in relation to international airlines and in relation to the difference between passenger numbers and air traffic movements. We've also provided you with an additional outline of the legislative responsibility in terms of, firstly, the Airports Company of South Africa Act that requires Acsa to manage the aerodrome and provide for relative activities such as the supply of fuel. The NERSA license, which enables Acsa to construct and provide for petroleum storage facilities. And then the fuel agreement, which we outline, is signed between Acsa and the major fuel suppliers and their roles and responsibilities with respect to that. We hope this is useful information that enables a firm understanding of the challenge we're facing, but secondly, that you understand the mitigation measures we have put in place, including the emergency supply, and thirdly, that you are able to further inform South Africa correctly about this challenge, our intention to resolve it, and importantly, the timeframes we have outlined. Finally, let me confirm this meeting this morning is a proper illustration of the engagement of all the responsible stakeholders, and we present to you all of the members of the panel who have participated in this meeting, who have a role to play in the implementation of this plan, and importantly, who are united with us in ensuring that South Africa does not continue to face the challenge of flight cancellations and importantly, of tankering to other airports. I thank you.
Thank you, CE. Colleagues from the media, before we open up the floor for questions, I'm going to allow the rest of the panelists to give just a 5 minutes statement in relation to what was discussed this morning. I'll ask Mr. George Matema, who is the CEO of Board of Airlines Association of South Africa. Okay, can we just move the mics if you don't mind? Please, by all means.
Yeah, it might be easier if I move and everybody just comes here. Thank you.
One more thing, if you don't mind, sir, if you can just introduce yourself again so we can record the name and the surname and the designation as well.
You're welcome, sir. So my name is George Matema. I'm the CEO of the Board of Airline Representatives South Africa, representing the international airlines. I think the meeting that we had, as CEO of Acsa said, was quite fruitful. And we're excited and we compliment Acsa in all the efforts that they've done, in order to put together the mitigating measures that we can go back to our members that are affected by the situation. As she said, obviously the fuel situation is stable, the issues to how do we address the mismatch that is there in the system with all those that are affected and not able to have the proper allocations. We're excited that indeed there is this different system that can be applied with the Central Energy Fund coming on board so that it will allow our members to be able to have access to fuel. And that in itself, we believe, I think, in the short space of time, should then alleviate the issue of tankering, cancellation of flights. We will be going back to our members to engage with them with all the measures that have been put in place. As you can see, that all the stakeholders have come on board. We're excited about the Department of Energy coming on board, Central Energy Fund coming on board. That in itself then resolves how we move forward as an industry. We're always supportive of making sure that as an industry, we do what is in the best interest of the country and of our members. For us, it has always been an issue of our members saying, we need to know what are the measures that have been put in place in order to allow us to do proper planning. Obviously, the tankering and cancellation of flight was as a result of having issues as to whether or not would we be able to get fuel because of the current allocations that have been provided within the airport space as a result of the suppliers. And our engagement with SAPIA and Acsa gives us that comfort that we can be able to communicate back to our members to say, hang on, you've got an alternative. Let's use that alternative that's been provided. And as I said, CEO, even this morning, that we are fully supportive of the work that you've done. And for us, we think that our members would be happy to get into a situation where everything is business as usual. We're back to normality, and the correct information is out there. We can confirm that our members are sensitive to the fact that, especially as international airlines, that there is a situation that has been declared by the president in this country, which obviously affects everybody. There is a national state of disaster that's been declared in KZN. We understand the facilities that are impacted, as a result of this situation, and we are not, ignorant of that fact. We just want to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matema. Up next, I will ask Dr. Tsepo Mokoka, the COO of the Central Energy Fund, to give us 5 minutes in his take of this morning's discussions.
Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone at home. We did indeed, as the CEO of Acsa have indicated, have a fruitful meeting between the various stakeholders that have attended the engagements. And as the Central Energy Fund, we were invited to be part of the solution, given our security of supply mandate that we derive from the DMRE, which is our shareholder. And I must say that the engagements were quite encouraging, because you had a room full of people who want to find a solution, a lasting solution to the current supply mismatch challenges that we have faced thus far. And the Central Energy Fund, charged with this mandate of security of supply, will contribute through working with the private sector in relation to the placement of additional volumes, but also solving the challenge of this mismatch that is currently causing a bit of a challenge in relation to the supply to the different airlines. And what is interesting here is that the solution is one that is being sought between the state and the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. You'll be followed by Mr. Aaron Munetsi, the CEO of Airlines Association of South Africa.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aaron Munetsi. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Airlines Association of Southern Africa. We are here to be supportive of the proactive approach that has been taken, led by Acsa, We are cognizant of the challenges that we've been facing. Most of our airlines have been operating and also making sure that wherever they were facing some challenges, they did not cancel their flights, but did what we call tankering, which means going to another Acsa airport, operated airport, where they were able to uplift fuel so that they could continue to support the aviation industry in South Africa and in Southern Africa. We definitely applaud and support this initiative. We want to make sure that we can guarantee the continued growth that we have been seeing now that the COVID pandemic has been managed. We are here to make sure that everything that we have agreed to is taken back to our members for their full support to make sure that Acsa continues to manage this process. We are also very confident of the fact that with the continuation of the work that is being done in the background to make sure that the supplies are coming through from the coast, like it was mentioned earlier on, the one rail track that is going to be on track is definitely going to assist us. And we are here to make sure that we also emphasize the fact that we are not only supportive of the domestic or regional airlines, the international airlines bring passengers that we also carry, passengers and cargo that we carry through the country as well. So every effort that is being made here is actually being made in conjunction with all the players that are led by this process. We are confident that going forward, we are not going to have different voices talking about the same challenge. We are going to have one voice talking about one solution for one industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Saya. And last but not least, Mr. Makafe. And colleagues, he's the head of security at the South African Petroleum Industry Association.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaneko Makafela from the South African Petroleum Industry Association. I'm the head of security of supply. This morning we met with Acsa, and it was not our first meeting. We've been meeting with them since this whole crisis started to find solutions to all the challenges that we've been having. So we can confirm that as the CE has said, that the shipment that was scheduled to arrive on the 5th of May has arrived and is going to be pumped this afternoon at about 1900 hours, and we expect it to arrive at Natref 1.5 weeks later. Our indications is that it is around the 19th of May. So we hope that shipment will bring us or maybe alleviate some of the issues that we are currently having. So we continue to work with Transnet on the repair of the railway tracks, and also to find other solutions in terms of jet supply into the pipeline. But for now, we are confident that as the industry will be able to meet this challenge and alleviate it as soon as possible. We will work with the Central Energy Fund in terms of the solution that they have proposed and see how best can we implement it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues from the media, we will now start taking questions. There's a roving mic which will be sanitized. Please identify yourself and the news house you're from before we take your question. I think we'll take 5 questions at a time. Can you please be specific who your question is also directed to? Kenzie, we've got 2 hands in front.
This is Angelo Coppola from China Global Television. I'm not sure who to address the question to, so I'm going to address it to the CEO of Acsa. Can you quantify the airlines and the number of flights that have been affected by the crisis? Firstly. Can you quantify, secondly, the amount of revenue lost to Acsa as a result of this? And then finally, Sapaya, you mentioned, sorry sir, you mentioned that it'd be here on the 19th at Natref, the fuel. So if the rail line is open from the 5th, from the 9th, I beg your pardon. It's going to take 10 days for the fuel to get into Natref refinery. Can you explain the process so we can understand why it's going to take that length of time, sir? Thank you.
Hi, am I audible? Hi, my name is Mobile from Reuters News. I'm assuming this would be for Acsa CEO. Can you get an indication of the day stock available of jet fuel currently at our Tambo? Sorry, I'm forgetting the name from the International Association. Yes. So how many international flights have cancelled? And have you spoken to them before this meeting, or you're yet to speak to them and you're yet to get a sense of when they will resume operation? And can we just get clarity on the additional volume, because there is extra volume that's coming, but is it the 20 million liters that was in the previous statement, and there was also mention of the 1.4, I'm not sure which one is that coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have more hands come around? Okay, not yet. Can you please respond to the first two questions? CE, I think the first one was for you. Maybe George can answer.
No, it's fine. Okay, George can start and then I can deal with the second one.
Colleagues, do you want us to move the mics over? George?
No, I think you don't mind me to go back.
Please mention who's George.
There are too many mics there, you know what's
Sorry, but can you do me a favor? That market's all the way up there. Can you just push it down a bit?
This one?
Yeah. Thank you.
So there's one left.
Yeah.
There's the last one.
There's one more mic
There's
left.
one more mic.
There's one on
Colleagues, the cable is too short.
That's right.
I just leave it there.
I think to answer the question from Reuters, which is directed to both myself and the CE of Acsa, is that I think in the pack there is an indication of the number of cancellations there. It's about 14, you will get it there. And the question whether or not have I spoken to my members prior to this meeting. So we've been having a number of engagements with Acsa, as well as all the other affected, stakeholders, Sapia and Transnet and all that. We've got what we call the Fuel Forum. So the engagements have been ongoing between us, and we've been updating our members in terms of the ongoing discussions that we've been having, including the shipment that just arrived that's now been pumped out. Obviously, we just had a discussion in terms of the current mitigation plan that has been put in place, because in the last Fuel Forum that we had, our engagement was such that we requested Acsa to come up with a plan that would enable us to be able to communicate, back to the public, back to our members. So our members are aware of the discussions that we were going to have, but as to the nitty-gritties of the plan in terms of how to access, for instance, the Central Energy Fund, which we have been informed with the Central Energy Fund coming on board today, is something that we're going to have to operationalize it. So after this meeting, there will be engagement amongst ourselves at the operational level on how best do we allow and communicate to our members to access, the emergency fuel that would have been supplied. So there's still some engagement that needs to happen. That's implementation side, but they are aware of us getting into a situation where we can say that there is a solution, and we're excited that indeed there is an interim solution that would lead to a permanent solution, such as Acsa, Transnet finalizing the infrastructure repairs and so on and so on. Thank you. See, I think we have followed.
Thank you very much.
See, I might have to move the mic.
My story.
Yeah.
Let's just indicate, as we have provided you with the data and the information, that despite the overall negative sentiment around cancellations, Am I audible? I must wait for all the mics? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Just very specifically in relation to the flight cancellations, we've provided you with data that shows the impact of this jet fuel crisis in respect of 2 airlines, which is really where the cancellations have been. The one airline, we prefer not to name them, cancelled 7 daily flights for a week but have resumed and are now operating. And the second one did the same from the 1st of May. So total number of 14 flights were cancelled in this period, and that covers 3,150 passengers who've been impacted. I would also indicate that the approximate cost of that to Acsa is on the basis of our fees that we generate at 200 rands per passenger, and that would take us to about 1.5 million with respect to that. We also indicated that the number of ATMs is 14, air traffic movements is 14, and that basically, we haven't computed, but the landing fees would be in the hundreds of thousands. So that's the overall impact of revenue loss from Acsa from those flights. The second issue we were concerned about as a result of this is that the alternative request we had made is that airlines who are not able to get supply from their normal suppliers because of the force majeure, and those suppliers who genuinely cannot provide such fuel, we had indicated that those airlines would basically be encouraged to either approach another supplier who is in the group that has stock, or tanker, that means embark on the journey to an alternative Acsa airport. And the importance of this is that there is no fuel crisis at other Acsa airports. King Shaka, Cape Town, Uppington, Bloemfontein, all our airports continue to operate normally with more than adequate fuel stock. So the practice of tankering has been our fallback position to encourage airlines to undertake. It would also appear that certain international airlines, which we won't name, chose to do the tankering in Windhoek, and in the one incident we know about. So over and above all of this, what we're committing to is removing the need for that shortage of supply to a group of airlines who were supplied by a specific group of suppliers who have faced the force majeure. Our plan B is to ensure that when an airline cannot find fuel from their normal supplier, the Central Energy Fund stock clicks in. And I hope that clarifies. We also understand that there may have been general unhappiness internationally in passengers wanting to undertake journeys to South Africa, but we want to assure members of the public here and international that we have an emergency fuel supply arrangement that is going to ensure that we don't have initially cancellations, we don't have tankering, and we ensure that Oliver Tambo International Airport is able to meet its demand. The question was asked about the number of days of stock. We have provided you in your presentation as well, in the slides that we provided you, with what we've been averaging in the months prior to this, where it's clearly illustrated that we've been at 6 days, 7 days, and that started to come down. At this current point, we are at 3.5 days worth of fuel. And again, the understanding we got today, because we're able to meet and really tackle this particular matter, is that it is the contractual obligations that the suppliers who have fuel are prevented somewhat from sharing with others, because they must first meet the requirements of their clients. So with that understanding, the stock that is available here at OR Tambo is 3.5 days. And what you would describe it as is it is committed stock to airlines that are flying into South Africa. And that's another picture we've pointed very clearly for you, is that the incidences of cancellations, and we're not trying to downplay the challenge we're facing, is actually minimal compared to the ones that are successfully flying in. And that will be shown at the rate, for instance, of 40 flights coming in and 1 not being able to per period. And we've done it for a week so that you really clearly understand the rate of cancellation versus the successful ones that are coming in and are being provided with fuel and are successfully refueling here and taking passengers back abroad as scheduled. I hope I've answered those 2 questions.
Thank you, CEO. There's a follow-up question. Can you get a microphone?
Sorry, ma'am. Just a follow-up question on what you just talked about now, about the jet fuel stock at OR Tambo. It's 3.5 days, as you say. What's the normal figure that you would normally be operating at?
It is comfortable for us to be at 5, at more than 5. So we did indicate that we've had a reduction. The main supply line, which is the Transnet line, is down, and that has had an impact. However, when it comes into OR, it is basically going to one set of suppliers versus the other. And the one group of suppliers in our joint venture that did declare force majeure, and you know of this because it's been in the media, are the ones who are not able to supply. Our initial intervention was to call a meeting of this nature and ask them to share. And that didn't quite work well. That's why we're now back with the plan B of an alternative emergency mechanism, which would mean if they are not able to supply, we don't depend on the other group of suppliers, but we have Central Energy Fund making that available so that you don't disrupt the contractual obligations between airlines and suppliers who have fuel. So this is an alternative mechanism, which means we're not taking from Peter to provide for Paul, but we have yet a third source of fuel coming from the Central Energy Fund.
Thank you, CE. Council, we've got a hand right there. The mic is coming through. Please remember to introduce yourself from your media house.
Hi, my name is Amina Akram. I'm from SABC Economics Radio. I just have 2 questions. Basically, the fuel price has been really, really high, and I haven't had any mention of that, obviously, because of the war in Russia and Ukraine. And then this entire mitigation, working with other stakeholders, is this something that's just going to be happening during emergency, or this is a relationship that's going to, be kept permanently to make sure that you work as a team, not just for emergency, but for other future issues that's going to arise?
Thank you. Colleagues, do we have another question before I go to our colleagues who are joining us virtually?
Yes, please. The one on clarity on the millions of liters, if you could just clarify what those come in and where's it going?
This one.
That's fine.
Okay, this
Can I just start with this question? Colleagues, I did indicate that we have a short, medium, and long-term plan to deal with the situation. Firstly, as confirmed earlier, what brings us to where we are now is unpredictable floods in KZN that resulted in the state of disaster. So in the short term, we're putting in measures to ameliorate the impact of that, principally to ensure we can provide for supply in the short term to then allow for the restoration of the infrastructure, but also the supply that's coming through the shipment that was indicated by our colleagues from SAPIA. What is important to note is that we're well aware of the challenges that are being faced in the fuel industry overall. This platform is one that will remain permanent for the foreseeable future. We anticipate initially that the logistics of what we've delivered to you today would need to be operationally managed by us working together almost on a daily basis and a weekly basis. There are technical issues around how literally we transport and what vehicles we use and the road component and the rail component. So we're going to be working together for a very long time. The indications around the overall impact of pricing, we've done an assessment, and you would also know we saw a doubling of the fuel price as a result of the Ukraine-Russian war. And already, I think we're starting to see signs of the negative impact of that increase in fuel price. Your colleagues in the media and the public would know Nigeria yesterday indicated flight cancellations as a result of high fuel costs. And it is that issue that ensures and requires us to bring in all the players, including the foremost important regulator, because we're anticipating beyond the floods, we have to deal with this fuel issue in relation to the constraints in infrastructure, the pricing, the shortage that may result of that globally, and therefore we'll be dealing with all of those issues together. This platform has existed. It's been raised to a level of finalizing the strategic plan so that we can actually be sure of the implementation thereof. It operates at the level of CEOs of all the companies, despite the representation today of some of them in Transnet. But I've been in engagement with the CEO of Transnet, Transnet Freight Rail CEO, Transnet Pipeline CEO, and we've been working together to get to where we are today. So I'd like to indicate and confirm that we've given this matter attention at the highest level of CEOs, and that's why you have the platform you have and those who are not with us. I know there's a mining indaba today that takes away the focus, but in essence, it's really to address that issue in the medium to long term. There's also an issue about refinery and the refinery capacity, and we're fully aware of that. Long before that issue starts to have an impact, we were made to understand there is an importation strategy that's in place, led by the Department of Minerals and Energy, and therefore managing and mitigating the negative impact of the refinery matter. Now I also understand there are alternative measures that have been put in place for the reoperation of the refinery in order to ameliorate all these challenges. So I'd like to give comfort entirely. We are looking at all the matters, and not just the issue of the floods, but also the other threats to overall fuel supply in South Africa. In the medium plan, we are re-looking at the issue of security of supply, and that would require us to amend, review our legal contracts, licensing agreements, conditions therein, to ensure that we're continuing to provide South Africans and our international visitors with certainty of supply of jet fuel to our airports. I'd like to then ask Terence to deal with the with the volumes and basically the totals that are expected from each area. And maybe Terence, starting with the immediate one from Sapia and the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'd like to introduce Mr. Terence Dolomani, who's the Group Executive at Acsa for Operations Management. Terence and Dr. could you just swap seats? I think it might be easier.
So, is that okay? Perhaps just in terms of, oh, sorry. Oh, okay, sure. All right, thanks. So in terms of current volumes, we currently receive approximately 16 million liters a week over a 1 week period from the Natref refinery. So that's what's keeping us going in terms of the operation. With the intervention around the ship that's docked at the harbor, and the fuel that we'll receive in about a week and a half time, that's another additional 20 million liters. So it's a once-off slug of fuel that we'll receive, and obviously that'll also come through the Natref pipeline once it's sitting at Natref. And then in terms of what the discussion around the CEF and that amount of fuel, so we're looking at another 1.5 million liters. So essentially that's really the volumes that we anticipate now over the next few weeks.
Thank you. Terence Dolomani, who's the Group Executive at Acsa Operations Management.
Thanks.
Terence, we've got two more questions
Sure.
for you. The first is, apologies, has Acsa waived landing and parking charges at Durban for those airlines that had to divert their flights to Durban to refuel? That's the first. And the second is, please could panelists also clarify what they mean by jet fuel supply is stable, but that demand and supply are not matched? Does that not mean there is a shortage?
Okay. All right. You want to start?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let me start with that. Just the issue around stability of fuel. Colleagues, we have provided you with information, and you'll see it, that shows that from above 5 that we had earlier on in the year per day stock, we have reduced to the 3.5 per day. Now what that means, what stability means, is we're lower than normally we generally hold our stock, which is lower than the 5. But we are at a 3.5 that is stable, and that means we are unlikely to dip further and go down to 2 days or 1 day, which is really what would be defined as a crisis. The challenge that we have is that that stock is sitting supplying particular airlines that have contracts with those suppliers. The companies that have declared a force majeure, who have also suffered as a consequence of their fuel not getting up from the coast, are the ones without. The intervention we initially put in place was to ensure or request the ones with fuel to share with the ones without. And just in the operations of that industry, we found it difficult to secure. Why? Simply because they are also contractually bound to prioritizing their clients than to prioritize the clients or other airlines that are not in their stable. This is what has brought us here, to the requirement for an intervention that helps us to supply those who can't secure stock from their normal suppliers. And that's where the CEF comes in. So that's what stability means. Stability means, yes, we're lower than normal, we're not below the benchmark that would create a crisis, but the problem of cancellation results out of a certain group of airlines unable to secure because their suppliers have declared a force majeure. I hope that helps to clarify that issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And perhaps I can respond to the question around waiving of fees. And maybe the short answer is no. We have not waived any landing fees. And perhaps if I can just amplify on that, broadly, there's three reasons for that. And the most important reason is that Acsa is a regulated entity. So the aeronautical tariffs that we charge are actually government gazetted. And at this point in time, there's no mechanism to do any waivers of those fees. So landing fees, passenger charges, airline parking charges are regulated. That's the one thing. The second thing is, yes, this is a difficult situation, difficult for the airlines, difficult for the industry. However, as part of business in an airline industry, airlines will make technical stops for refueling. They will have to divert, and those do come at a cost, and those costs are factored into the entire cost structure. And thirdly, when Acsa is processing an airline, so a landing fee is just not a tax. There's a cost associated with that we are incurring. That's the cost of the infrastructure, the cost of the handling, and the cost of doing all of this. So, yes, so that's probably just an expansion as to why there's no waiving of fees.
Thank you, Terence. We received a question online from William Horn with NACVAT24. He says, how will CEF rather transport the 1.5 million liters of jet fuel to OR Tambo?
Okay, we're going to get CEF to deal with that one.
Thank you very much. That's a simple one. Operationally, it's either going to be through rail or trucking, because those are small volumes. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleagues, do we have any more hands in the room? No, not. Okay. We've got another question from Nick Wilson of Business Times. What proportion of jet fuel is imported versus locally produced?
I think currently we only have one refinery that is producing jet, which is Natref, and the balance is imported. So I'll say maybe 70% of our jet fuel is imported currently, as other refineries are out of service. So that's basically the number. I think there was a question that that gentleman there asked about the dates. So OR Tambo is supplied via two modes. Supplied via rail from Durban and also via pipeline through the dedicated jet line from the Natref refinery. So what we're talking about is the pipeline that is injected tonight is via pipeline to Natref. So the rail will still be repaired by the 9th of June. So those are two different things. So that's how we supply the airport right now.
Thank you. Colleagues, there's an opportunity for any more questions in the room? Nothing? Well, thank you very much. Colleagues, before I hand over to my CEO to conclude for us, please note that there will be a press pack. Just wait for it before you leave. Thank you so much for joining our press briefing this afternoon. CE, could you please close for us?
Thank you very much. And firstly, let me thank the esteemed members of the various stakeholders that joined us for this press conference today. We've been working together, as we've confirmed, over the last few weeks, dealing with this particular challenge of shortage of fuel at OR Tambo. As we indicated earlier, our solutions did not quite give us the intended results because of the contractual obligations and therefore the mismatch between airline and supplier. We've developed an alternative mechanism as a fallback position in order to ameliorate that, and the CEF comes through to help us with that particular challenge. Importantly, we had reported to you earlier that we have the shipment that is going to arrive, the Transnet by 9th of June rail repair on the 9th, which will enable 50% of that original stock, 100% by October. So we really foresee a situation that will improve by the day as we move towards the end of the year. In October, when Transnet restores 100%, that would probably mean we're fully back to normal. In the meantime, we have committed to working together. We're establishing an operations room because we've learned the lesson of mismatch of information when one airline doesn't know where to get fuel, etc., and we hope to completely overcome that. That will just enable them all on a day-to-day basis as they plan, make their commitments to be secured of supply. But importantly, we've also learned the lessons from the state of disaster that we faced as a country. None of us would have anticipated these kind of impacts. But we also understand that climate change is not going anywhere. And by definition, our plans are not temporary. They would be plans we put in place for the foreseeable future in order to protect jet fuel's security of supply, but importantly, even protect the country against the potential negative impacts of increasing price of fuel that comes, as we would expect it, as a result of the conflict in Eastern Europe. We'd like to thank you for your attention, and I would really like to express my gratitude to the colleagues that are here with us and the other CEOs who have not been here, who are part of this exercise in the Transnet family, and really indicate to you our unwavering commitment, dedication, and the commitment of our institutions. Behind us here sit several institutions that will ensure that the challenge that we face is not one that we'll see in the foreseeable future. I thank you.
That's what I want to do. You know, let me do this. Let me take off this. Hey, go get this light is out, eh?
Chat with the CEO interview before.
I have a solution for the problem with the microphone. We need to exchange numbers so that I can show you.
06.
I just need to cut that footprint.
No, I don't. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to give it to you. But you must find it. You're clever. Daily average, you're clever. You can find it. I know. You took a chance and looked at me.